Well, like it or not, if you watch TV, get ready for much more gay. A study came out, pun intended, a year ago showing a rapidly increasing trend, record numbers of LGBT characters on television, particularly on primetime, and more LGBT characters in leading roles. Now, they've been working on this for decades, actually, but the agenda to normalize homosexuality goes back to the 1970s. And they won't stop until the American public not only accepts and approves of their lifestyles, but celebrates them. This week, GLAAD published its annual report on the status of LGBT infiltration of television and their plans to dominate the industry within 5 years. Gay rights activists, corporations, government schools, Hollywood, and media elites might deny this agenda, but the facts tell a very different story. I'm David Fiorazzo, and this is Christ and Culture. GLAAD's report is called Where We Are on TV and analyzes the number of LGBT and non-white characters on television. They are demanding 1 in 5 characters on primetime shows be LGBT by 2025. GLAAD is calling on the industry to ensure the success of their agenda. Right now, 10.2% of broadcast series regular characters are LGBT. But according to a Gallup survey of adults in the U.S., an extremely liberal estimate of 4.5% of the population identifies as LGBT. This means they are already overrepresented on TV by 227%. So if their demands are met, 5 years from now, there would be an overrepresentation of roughly 4.5 times the actual LGBT population. They advance the agenda in part by bullying corporate sponsors of TV shows and by spending millions to change public opinion, influence elections, as well as teachers' unions. Back in the 1970s, gay activists pressured the American Psychiatric Association to remove homosexuality as a category of mental illness. Look it up. That's where it started. And it doesn't stop with television programs or streaming services like Netflix. It's hard not to notice more gays, lesbians, and transgenders in commercials, social media, print ads, and even cartoons for your kids. The revolution is upon us. GLAAD President Sarah Kate Ellis states, quote, GLAAD has tracked the presence of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer characters on TV for 24 years, and our community finds itself in 2019 facing unprecedented attacks on our progress. The role of television in changing hearts and minds has never been more important. Indeed, our nation's cultural institutions are being called to stand in the gap at this tumultuous time in the history of our movement for full acceptance. So, what do you think she means by full acceptance? The silencing and or the abolishment of Christianity and biblical morality in our culture. What about so-called unprecedented attacks on their progress? Well, that's an extreme talking point, isn't it? Homosexuality has never been more accepted, and the press has been more favorable and has been more visible. It is either disingenuous or naive for people to think the massively powerful LGBT lobby is willing to peacefully coexist with those who disagree with them, and by powerful, think mafia. You don't have to be a Christian business owner to understand the danger here. Once again, we're seeing evil being called good. In other words, sin is promoted as normal. Now, the Bible warned about this a few thousand years ago. In the book of Romans, for example, it is dishonorable and shameless when men and women give up natural relations for unnatural same-sex behaviors. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. Remember, someone's natural identity, who a person is and how God created them, is not the same as their chosen sexual behavior or lifestyle. what a person does, who a person loves. Now, the laws and morality of the one true God are in the way of this immoral agenda, and so is anyone who follows the living God. Something has to give, right? Over in Britain, by the way, you may not be surprised, a judge in the UK recently ruled that belief in the Bible is incompatible with human dignity. Think about that. Human dignity exists because God made man in his image. Without God, there can be no good and no inherent value to human life at all. I used to laugh when someone used the words post-Christian when referring to America. Not anymore. Now, I realize this is disappointing news, but how are we going to respond? Remember, the more dark the culture, the more light Christians can shine on it. We've all sinned, but forgiveness is available to anyone who admits it and turns to God. Let's love our neighbors enough to tell them about Christ's offer of salvation. God bless you and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.